Hello students, today we'll be going to see one more condition in abnormal labor. This is one of the most feared, devastating complications of pregnancy. So it is one of the life-threatening complication which you can see in pregnancy, or a life-threatening condition which you are going to see in pregnancy. So we'll see regarding that condition what it is. So the condition is amniotic fluid embolism. It is one of the really feared and life-threatening condition which can happen at the time of pregnancy or during the time of labor itself. Here what happens is, in this condition, the amniotic fluid or the fetal cell, hair or other debris, it enters the mother's bloodstream via the placenta and it triggers an allergic reaction. So because of this allergic reaction, the patient may go into respiratory arrest or even to coma or shock. So that is the main thing which you can see in amniotic fluid embolism. The overlook. The disease spectrum ranges from a subclinical entity to one which is rapidly fatal. So it is rapidly, the patient immediately dies, or she from the clinical entity, the condition rapidly moves into where she has an immediate death. So most cases, nearly 80% occurs during the time of labor itself. During the time in the labor bed itself, when she is delivering, suddenly she may go for shock, suddenly she may go for severe bleeding, suddenly she may go for a respiratory arrest. So anything can happen during this time. So 80% of the cases it happens in the labor bed itself. But there are chances it can happen either before the labor or immediately after the delivery. About 25% of patient will die within 1 hour of onset if not dealt promptly, or if not taken an active management. The patient will surely die because of this amniotic fluid embolism. The incidence of amniotic fluid embolism. The incidence of this syndrome, it ranges from 1 in 8,000 to 1 in 80,000 pregnancies. So there is a wide range, and you cannot, it is a rare condition which you will usually not see this condition of amniotic fluid embolism, because the reason is one thing, it is very difficult to diagnose the amniotic fluid embolism, and there still you can see certain cases who are admitted in ICU as the amniotic fluid embolism. So the range is very wide, which is 1 in 8,000 to 1 in 80,000 pregnancy. Even today you can see that amniotic fluid embolism is the leading cause of death, especially during the labor and the first few hours of postpartum, and it remains a deadly and unpreventable obstetric emergency. Even though we have various technological advances in critical care unit, still the maternal mortality rate, the death because of the amniotic fluid embolism, remains around 61%, and the number of survivors who have come out of this amniotic fluid embolism will have a permanent hypoxia induced neurological damage. So this you can see in the survivors from amniotic fluid embolism. So what is the cause for amniotic fluid embolism? So as I've said it is very difficult to diagnose the amniotic fluid embolism, but it is mostly agreed that this condition means from the amniotic fluid enters the uterine veins. So amniotic fluid, when it enters the uterine veins, it leads to a amniotic fluid embolism. The amniotic fluid embolism occurs when the barrier between the amniotic fluid and the maternal circulation is broken, and maybe because of the pressure gradient, fluid abnormally enters the maternal venous system through the endocervical veins or through the placental site, or because of the uterine trauma site. So the amniotic fluid, when it enters into the maternal circulation, it leads to a amniotic fluid embolism. And it is for some women they will develop this reaction against this amniotic fluid when it enters into the maternal circulation. Till now, they have not actually studied why some women reacts to this amniotic fluid, whereas in others it's not clearly understood. So that is the main cause of amniotic fluid embolism. The risk factors who are prone to get the amniotic fluid embolism are older age, multiparity, intense uterine contraction, either physiological or drug induced. Abdominal trauma can happen because of that, because of cesarean section. There may be uterine rupture, high cervical tear, premature placental separation, abruptio placenta, intrauterine fetal demise or fetal distress. So these patients are at a higher risk of getting a amniotic fluid embolism. And it is also said that medical induction of labor, it also doubles the risk of the patient going for this amniotic fluid embolism. So these are certain list down risk factors who may develop or who are prone to develop the amniotic fluid embolism. We'll move on to the clinical features. So what are the clinical features which you can see in amniotic fluid embolism? As I said you, the amniotic fluid embolism, it usually occurs during the labor, on the labor bed itself, but it has also been recorded during the abortion and also maybe during the time of abdominal trauma and even at the time of amnio infusion. So there are chances that during this time there are chances that the lady may go for amniotic fluid embolism. Here the thing which you can see is typically a woman in the late stage of labor, she becomes acutely dyspneic, cyanotic and hypotension. She may experience even seizures followed by a cardiac arrest. Massive disseminated intravascular coagulation which is associated with a hemorrhage follows, and then there is a death. Most patients will die within an hour of onset. So it is a obstetric emergency. At the time of labor, in the labor itself, the nurses as well as the doctor has to go for an active management, and immediately the patient has to be shifted to the intensive care unit and should be managed very promptly. So that is the very crucial stage where she has to be managed. And more than 80% of the patient experience cardiorespiratory arrest within the first few minutes. And nearly 40 to 50% of those who survive have a coagulopathy and hemorrhage up to the 4 hours later. Next, we'll move on to the diagnosis. How you can diagnose the amniotic fluid embolism. I said you that it is very difficult to diagnose the amniotic fluid embolism at certain state of dealing with this patient which happens suddenly on the labor bed itself. So it is one of the obstetrical emergency. So the diagnosis of amniotic fluid embolism is always a clinical diagnosis. So as I said that most of the patient go for a death, maternal death. So in that case, the post-mortem diagnosis, in the post-mortem when you diagnose of an amniotic fluid embolism, it is made by demonstration of amniotic fluid debris. You can see this amniotic fluid debris in the pulmonary vasculature when you do a post-mortem study. So then you can diagnose, okay, this is a amniotic fluid embolism. And in the survivors, the same findings when present in the blood vessels of the uterus, and in particularly the uterus as well as the cervix, the blood vessels, you can see this amniotic fluid also confirm the diagnosis among the survivors. And also the diagnosis can be made by the cytological examination of blood from the central venous of pulmonary catheterization. So you can find out the amniotic fluid. So and also you can see the measurement of the maternal plasma zinc coproporphyrin, which is a component of meconium, and also you can see the component in the fetal urine. Okay, so when there is the presence of this maternal plasma zinc coproporphyrin, then you can diagnose. This is one of the most key point where you can understand that the lady had a amniotic fluid embolism. This is the main indicator. And next we'll see the second manifestation. So how you can manifest, that is the first thing which you can find out. The second thing is manifestation includes a negative ionotropism. The ionotropism means that is the strength of the contraction of the heart muscle is weakened. So that is called as ionotropism, and left ventricular failure resulting in increased pulmonary edema and hypotension, quickly leading to shock. That is the second manifestation. And the third manifestation which you can see is the neurological response to the respiratory and hemodynamic injury, which includes, you can see, seizures, confusion or coma. So this is how, these are the manifestations which you can see, and as I said, you can do a clinical diagnosis based on the manifestation of the patient. Okay, the first manifestation you can just diagnose by seeing the presence of this fluid in the blood vessels of the uterus and also in the blood vessels of the cervix. Same thing, it can be detected. And you can see that about 40 to 50% of the patient who survive to this point have a severe coagulopathy, that is usually a disseminated intravascular coagulation, which result in a uncontrollable uterine bleeding. Along the bleeding may be from the puncture site, wherever you puncture, that is insertion IV fluid, when if you insert the insertion site for intravenous or you are inserting a epidural catheter, you can see the bleeding. The bleeding is mainly because the component of amniotic fluid, that is thromboplastin. The thromboplastin is one of the component of the amniotic fluid. Here what happens, it initiates the extrinsic pathway of the clotting cascade and result in excessive fibrinolytic activity. When there is an excessive fibrinolytic activity, what happens is the bleeding increases. There is no clotting mechanism. The bleeding will be continuous. So the patient will be suffering with a continuous heavy bleeding. So these are the manifestation which you can see where you can diagnose that this lady has a amniotic fluid embolism. We'll move on to the next, that is pathophysiology. The pathophysiology of amniotic fluid embolism is poorly understood, but we'll just try to know what's the pathophysiology. So here, when amniotic fluid enters the maternal circulation, it possibly triggers an anaphylactic reaction. That is the main thing happening in the amniotic fluid embolism. So they divided as according to the manifestation into a first phase and the second phase. In the first phase, what happens is the patient experiences a shortness of breath and hypertension because of this emboli or the amniotic fluid embolism. This rapidly progresses to the cardiopulmonary arrest as the chambers of the heart fail to dilate and there is a reduction of oxygen to the heart and lungs, and the patient will go to coma. Second phase. So that's the first phase. And in second phase, what happens is most of the ladies will die during the first phase itself, when like 40% of the survivors will pass on to the second phase. And this phase is also known as a hemorrhagic phase, and it is accompanied, in this phase you can see that the patient will be experiencing a severe shivering will be there, cough, vomiting and the sensation of bad taste in the mouth. And also this phase is accompanied by a excessive bleeding, because here the blood loses its ability to clot. As I have said you, there is a thromboplastin which initiate the extrinsic pathway of the clotting cascade and result in excessive fibrinolytic activity. Because of this reason, the blood loses its ability to clot and there will be a severe bleeding. As hypoxia is progressive, and this also lead to a fetal distress. The fetus, there is a danger for the fetus also, which is leading to a fetal distress. So this is the first phase, and the second phase, the things, the manifestations, how it is manifested during the first phase and the second phase of the ladies who are suffering with amniotic fluid embolism. We'll see how you will manage this amniotic fluid embolism. Once the signs and symptoms have been recognized and you have presumptive diagnosis has been done, and you have to now move on for the supportive measures which has to be implemented promptly. Immediately the patient will show all the signs and symptoms, so you have to take an active management, because it is one of the obstetrical emergency, and the patient itself will show off with all the signs where you are going to move very fast. So the first thing which you have to concentrate is on oxygenation. Immediately you are going to start with an oxygen. The fetus is suppose she has still the fetus is inside, she has not yet delivered, then you have to consider the mother as well as the fetus. So the fetus is very vulnerable to the maternal hypoxia. Once the mother is in hypoxia, the fetus will respond very quickly. So which is initially profound which is most of the thing which you can see in amniotic fluid embolism. Therefore the first priority is resuscitation of the mother and the administration of the oxygen. Immediately you have to start with an oxygen with any means which is available. So depending upon the oxygenation, you have to check the vital signs as well as you have to check the SpO2. Based on that, you have to immediately go on either for an oxygenation therapy through the mask or through the nasal cannula, or else next the thing is you have to go for a endotracheal intubation with the symptoms with the patient present, or finally you have to go for a mechanical ventilation based on the oxygenation of the patient. The next one is the circulation. So maintaining cardiac output and blood pressure involves several simultaneous interventions. So immediately you have to be very fast and very simultaneous intervention has to be taken. The one thing is positioning the patient. The patient has to be positioned flat or in a slight Trendelenburg position. Usually the labor room beds will be made in such a way so that there are various pull buttons where you can make the bed flat immediately, or in you can put the patient in a Trendelenburg position. So this will improve the venous blood return and perfusion of the central nervous system. And the second thing is you have to initiate immediately, you have to start with the fluid therapy and also the drugs, the administration of pharmacological agents and electrocardiographic monitoring to detect and treat arrhythmias. So this is they can also call a code during this period, and you can see that the doctors and the anesthetist will arrive at the spot, and based on their orders you have to administer the drugs and immediately start the IV fluids. And placement of pulmonary artery catheter is highly recommended for monitoring the cardiac output, central venous pressure, pulmonary artery pressure. In addition, the pulmonary artery catheter provide a direct access for blood samples to be sent for cytological analysis for amniotic fluid and fetal debris. So it is, you can have a it will help in a two ways, to send for investigation as well as you can have a to manage the patient. So it helps in both the way, to monitor the patient as well as for the investigation. Volume replacement with isotonic crystalloid solution is a first line therapy for maintaining the blood pressure. Fluid therapy should be based on findings of the central venous monitoring. Based on the central venous monitoring, the administration of the fluid should be done. That is how you are managing the circulation. And next is the fetal management. Here the fetal, because you have two lives in your hand, the fetal management is also very important. The fetus is continuously monitored. You have to connect the lady with a CTG, okay, and the TOCO, it should be monitored. The fetal heart sound should be continuously monitored. And if this amniotic fluid embolism occurs usually during the time of labor, AFib occurs before or during delivery. However, the fetus is in a grave danger from the onset because of the maternal cardiopulmonary crisis. Delivery of the fetus increases the chance for a good outcome. If the delivery has already happened, or so I have seen the case like amniotic fluid embolism on the bed, when the patient, half of the baby is out, she suddenly had a bleeding as well as she went for a coma. So the doctor anyway he extracted the baby, delivered the baby with the help of a forceps. So this is how he delivered, and immediately the lady was shifted to ICU. So delivery, if you deliver the fetus, the delivery of the fetus increases the chance for a good outcome for the mother, because the weight of the gravid uterus on the interior vena cava impedes the blood return to the heart and decreases the systemic blood pressure. And if resuscitation of the mother is futile, an emergency bedside caesarean delivery may be necessary to save the infant. Finally, CPR, the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, is initiated if the patient goes into a cardiac arrest. If she does not respond to resuscitation, a perimortem caesarean delivery is performed. So that is the thing which will happen, and it is a very sad thing which will happen because of this amniotic fluid embolism. Finally, I wanted to add one more thing for the management. So for the management, you have mainly the oxygenation, circulation and fetal management, and also you have to manage the bleeding. They will be bleeding because of the coagulopathy. You have to control the hemorrhage. So in order to control the hemorrhage, it is mainly treated with the FFP, that is fresh frozen plasma is to be administered, and if the platelet count is less than 20,000 per ml, then you have to transfuse the platelets has to be transfused. Administration of blood transfusion and blood components is considered the first line of treatment for correcting this coagulopathy, which is associated with the amniotic fluid embolism. So the way how the blood products will help in this condition is, it helps to maintain the organ perfusion as well as the urinary output until the bleeding due to the disseminated intravascular coagulation resolves. So this is the reason you have to transfuse the blood and the blood products. So that is the thing which is also included in the management of the amniotic fluid embolism. So the main thing is, you have to resuscitate the patient. You have to bring back to a normal condition. Usually if this happens in a labor room, immediate management has to be done by opening a crash cart and as well as shifting the patient immediately to the intensive care unit, and a prompt management is very essential during this time. So that's about the amniotic fluid embolism. So in amniotic fluid embolism, we have seen what is amniotic fluid embolism, the overlook of amniotic fluid embolism, the incidence, the cause, the risk factors, clinical features, how you can diagnose, the pathophysiology, the manifestation which is done in first phase and the second phase, finally the management. In management, you have oxygenation, circulation, fetal management, and how you can control the hemorrhage. So that's about the amniotic fluid embolism. Hope you have understood it. If you have any doubt, you are free to ask me. Thank you. Have a great day.